Okay. Uh, so hi everyone. Thank you very much for getting up early today to join this online workshop. And as you know, we are focusing on online teaching during the pandemic. And we have a special guest today, Dr. Michael Cheung from Azusa Pacific University in the U.S. in California. And some of you already know Dr. Cheung before because he spent 2 months in February and March 2019 as a Fulbright specialist. And as I have sent you the HANU Fulbright Project website, we cover basically all the things that is important for online learning a year in advance. Mike, we did do that a year in advance
Yeah.
with the pandemic. The, the content of the workshop is important for us. So we'd like to thank you very much for joining us. And Dr. Mai Cheung is the learning architectures at Azusa Pacific University. And in Azusa Pacific University, there's a special divisions that focusing on facilitating online learning and helping faculty and students to bring online learning and other educational technologies and tools into the teaching of the faculty and the learning of the students. So he's an expert in this area, and what is better is that Dr. Mai Cheung also have some experience in Vietnam as well. So it's like the best of both worlds. So we would like to thank you very much for spending time. And we look forward to your presentations. I might leave the meeting because I need to get to the car and get to work, but I'm going to follow the presentation as well. So don't worry if I sign out, I will sign back in.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dean, too. I welcome this opportunity. When he contacted me a few days ago, I was like very pleasantly surprised and very, at the same time, excited. I told him this is my mini HANU reunion in a very unexpected way. I actually, here's my cup, my HANU cup. I got this as a gift when I was there, and I use it every day. So as a way to remind myself of the place I was at. So I'm very excited to be part of this. So let me quickly make sure everybody is oriented to Zoom. I know that most people are, but this is just a lot of what I do today is I'm going to try to demonstrate to you what are kind of best practices when you are teaching. And so orientation to Zoom, everybody's audio will be muted just to minimize any kind of interference. And there will be times when we will unmute and then we get to talk, but for the most part, everybody's muted. I encourage you to make your Zoom full screen so that you can see all the slides, and then use the chat along the way. If you have questions, comments, just put those in the chat. And then also I'll be demonstrating different uses of the tools. And then this session is being recorded today and made available for you to review later. So keep that in mind. So just a little bit about myself. I was born in Saigon, and I lived in the US now for 40 years, only in California. I've not lived in any other state. Married with 3 kids. Those are my kids in the picture. They are in 5th grade, 7th grade, and 9th grade. So I have a elementary, a middle school, and a high schooler, a teenager actually. So, and then I visited Vietnam 6 times. And I was hoping to visit this year or last year, but that didn't happen because of the pandemic. And I have worked at APU now this is my 8th year at APU. And as Dean too was telling you, that I oversee online learning and faculty training and instructional design. We develop online courses. So in terms of what I do on my free time. I love to cook. I actually was cooking earlier today, barbecuing. I love taking walks, and I love watching K-drama. That's a new thing I started doing the last year. So Korean drama is one of the things I love to enjoy. Here's just a couple of pictures of my time at HANU. Dean too was saying that in February and March of 2019, this is 2 years ago now, I was there, and it was definitely one of the best life experiences I've had, getting to meet everybody and talk to everybody. And, I hope to return soon as a reunion. So today's workshop is something that I think, based on the materials that you've had from the HANU project, the specialist project I put together website, but it's also going to be a little bit of new materials. And so I'm going to try to cover 3 big areas, and then I'll make sure we have plenty of time for questions and answer at the end. So I'll make sure we have plenty of time, like at least 30 minutes or so for Q&A. To kind of give a context of what's happened in the past year, COVID-19, it interrupted education, across the world, including United States and Vietnam, and over 1.5 billion students, from kindergarten or pre-kindergarten all the way to universities and grad schools. It's been definitely impacted, and we've also learned that many things as a result of this disruption, that lack of access to computers or to internet or reliable access has been an issue. Some students who don't have the devices or the internet connections that are reliable has had a hard time trying to continue learning. And then so some of these problems were solved by government, but some of these problems are not solvable in terms of the student engagement and some of the issues around learning online. So hopefully today, what I hope to do is kind of give you some of the ways we can address this. And even though there are no perfect answers, I will try to address some of those. And so as a first interaction activity, so the question is, how would you grade yourself as a teacher during the pandemic? So how would you grade yourself as a teacher during the pandemic? Would you give yourself an A? Would you give yourself a B or a C? And the way I want you to answer this question is by renaming yourself. So if you go to the participant and then you click on more and rename. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, and then you can see. So if you see my name now, I will have a letter next to my name. I want you to be able to rename yourself, add that letter to reflect on how would you grade yourself as a teacher during the pandemic. So go ahead and see if you can do that. So hover over the participant list, and then go to more, and then rename, and then add a letter. And then, or you can look for your video, and then the 3 dots, click on that, and then change it. So go ahead. I encourage you to go ahead and do that. All right, so thanks. I think most of you have given yourself a grade. So this is a personalization exercise that I always love to do with Zoom. The one of the things that I will come back to throughout today's talk is that the more opportunities you give your students a way to personalize or share what they're going through, the better, because then it gives them a way to express their feelings or their frustrations or their successes or their failures. Because by just simple thing like just adding a letter in front of the name gives an opportunity for the student. And I've done this with renaming yourself, find a adjective that matches the first letter of your first name and change your name. So for example, I always say Mike multitasking, and that's that's how just different ways you can use personalization method. So another thing I like to do is kind of get a poll of how you guys are doing as a teacher. So here, I'm gonna go ahead and launch this poll. So I'm gonna ask you 3 questions about about satisfaction. So go ahead and answer those questions right now. So the first question is, rate your experience teaching online. Do you love it? Is it okay? Or do you hate it? Second question is, do you enjoy teaching online? Yes, not sure, or no. And then the third is, which instructional modality do you prefer? So I'll give you another maybe 10, 15 seconds here to make sure everybody has had a chance to answer. In terms of rating your experience teaching online, people don't love it, nor do they hate it. No, it's kind of like in the middle. It's okay, which is understandable. I think that's where a lot of people are, especially if they haven't taught online before. It's not going to be something they love very quickly. In terms of do you enjoy, so this is a surprise that actually more people enjoy it than not, which is good. That's very positive. And then finally, which instructional modality do you prefer? In person is good. Online is low. And then the blended, which is a little bit of in-person online. Yeah, I think that's good. I'm glad that is also a positive. So that's very helpful to know. So I'm going to stop sharing results, and then I'm going to move on. So thank you for your participation. So I've already done 2 interactions with you, if you notice. The first thing is I asked you to rate yourself, and the second is do the polling. And those are just 2 techniques. Again, I will try to communicate what I call meta communicate what I'm doing, so that it gives you ideas of what to do as a teacher when you're teaching online. So today I'm going to cover 3 areas. One is tech tips, another is engagement strategies, and a third is online teaching best practices. And then we'll have some Q&A time. So I'm going to now go into this tech tips. So when it comes to hardware, your computer, your connected computer, you just have to make sure that you have something that meets the basic requirement. And I don't need to go into this because a lot of it is unique to different situations. But if you have a reliable computer and a reliable internet connection, that would be ideal. Like you don't want, if you can connect it via a wire, it's better than connected by wireless, because wireless sometimes is not as reliable as wired. So I always encourage, faculty when they're teaching online, have a wired connection. Same thing with the students. And if you can't do that, then you do the best you can. Monitor is important. If you don't have an external monitor, I think it's going to be a little challenging trying to teach online. You can do it, but it is going to be a little harder. I actually teach, I currently have 2 monitors in front of me. If you can't see it, but I actually have 2 monitors. And that's, very, very important for me, because then when I'm teaching, I have one monitor where I'm kind of see the students, and then another monitor where my content is being shared, and I can kind of interact and see both without having to kind of keep flipping between the screens. Headset, the one I have right now, is also very important. I know you can use a laptop without a headset, but the problem is you're not going to come through as clearly and loudly as this. With my headset, I can actually block out most of the noise. I can have my kids playing in the background and yelling and screaming, and it won't pick up as any of that sound as much as if. So headset really helps to isolate the noise. And when you're teaching online, you want to make sure you minimize that external noise and only focus on the noise that you want. And then finally, a webcam is important. So I have a typical webcam. What you see there is what I have. And webcams are really, most are built into laptops nowadays. So if you're using a laptop, no big deal. But if you are connecting your laptop to a monitor, it's good to have a webcam, so that just it's easier to, you want to eye level. So like for me, when I look into the camera, I'm looking at eye level. I'm not looking down. I'm not looking up. Eye level. That's important. So that's just some basic hardware tips about the these things. There's also software, obviously, you have to worry about. So whenever you teach online, you want to make sure you invest time understanding and using and being comfortable with these different software. I mean, these are just a couple. Zoom, Meet, Classroom, Teams. I mean, all the different things that were listed in the survey. The more time you spend in it and being comfortable with it, the easier your teaching will be, because then you don't have to worry about the technology. The technology becomes less important, and then the content and you become more important. So you want to, if you're not comfortable with Zoom or with Classroom or whatever, just take some time, practice. It's important, just like anything else, that you want to be comfortable enough to not worry about the technology. And of course, it will fail. Technology will always fail on you, but even when it fails, if you're comfortable, you're not going to stress out. You're not going to worry about, oh no, what's going to happen? You will just simply carry on and fix the problem as you go along. And so it's important just to be comfortable using the technology. So that's sort of my point. This is just an example. Zoom bar, the control bar has some functionalities. Make sure you know which button does what. If you are not sure what the button is, practice using it before you use it live so that you can manage your session without problems. Like today, I already have used the let me see if I can get my little pointer here. So you can see here, today I've already used the chat tool, the polls tool, screen share tool, and a recording tool. So I've used a couple of these already. So make sure you know what the buttons are and what they do and how to use it. We're going to try to use the breakout room later today, as well as the reaction. So again, basic tips is be comfortable, understand what you're using, and then practice using it. Same thing goes with the Google Classroom. There are lots of tutorials you can watch online to learn how to use all the functionalities of Google. This is just a very simple tip. Things like if you want some content, older content highlighted, you just bring it to the top. Move it to the top function. Email everyone in class in the people tab. So these are just basic tips that you just, the more you know about these tips, again, the easier it will make your online teaching. It'll sort of make you more proficient in the process and in how you do things. So we talked about the hardware, we talked about the software. Now I just want to talk a little bit about environment. Sound, I mentioned earlier, is very important. You don't want to be teaching in a cafe. You don't want to be teaching in a sort of outdoor environment where there's like maybe traffic or construction or whatever. You just want to control the sound as much as you can so that students, when they're listening to you, they're not worrying like trying to hear what you're saying, because it's just not audible because there's so many background noise. And so one of the things that I actually tell some teachers, like if you can't find a quiet space, go maybe to a closet because the closet might be one of the best quiet space you can find in your house. And some people have turned their closet into a teaching classroom. So sound is very, very important in online teaching. Another is lighting. As you can see, I actually have a lighting in front of me. I have lighting to my right, and I probably need to turn up the lighting a little bit in my room as it gets darker here. But lighting, you want soft light on your face so that it becomes, people can see your face. The worst thing is that you have very bright lights on the back of you, and then your face become dark, and they can't really see who you are. So the lighting is important because you want to show sort of students their face and your expression, and when you are sort of talking, that they can see, kind of read lips if they wanted to. And then the third thing about your environment that's important is the background. So I have a very messy office right now, messy room. And so what I do is I have a green screen. So this is actually a green screen behind me. Let me show you real quick what that looks like so that you can see what a green screen, what with it and without it looks like. So this is what it looks like normally. And if you look behind that, there's actually a lot of mess, a big mess in the background. So what I do is I use a green screen and then I use a virtual background. And as you can see, I can turn my messy office into a very professional setting or a very nicer setting than it would normally be. And that way students are not distracted and looking at like, oh, what's on this background? They're able to, again, all the things you're doing to your environment is to minimize distraction. That's really the goal, minimize distraction for your students. All right. And next, I think is important is your slides as you share content with your students. Make sure when you create slides, you're doing it in a way that is clear, that's simple, that's easy to read. So I don't know if you noticed my slides up to this point. They're very, very simple, meaning I use words and I use images. Pictures, words and pictures together is a very important, they call that the multimedia principle. When you combine picture with a word that goes together, it reinforces understanding. And that's what you want to do is when you have some text, you also want to have a picture that tries to reinforce that meaning. Another principle when you're creating slides to keep in mind is just minimizing distraction or what they call the coherence principle. Coherence principle basically says that you want to reduce anything that does not make sense or that's not relevant. Like this picture of a arm with 3 watches. You do not need 3 watches. Most people only need 1. And so you take out the extraneous information. Anything that's unnecessary, you take out. Like when I try to create slides, I take out as much as I can. I can always talk about it when I'm teaching it, but minimizing text is important because you only want the most important things being displayed. And then the third principle I think is important is this idea of narrating effectively. So as you have your pictures and your images, you talking over your slides, that's what I try to do is I walk my students through my slides as best as I can. And sometimes having a pointer is important. Like you can like here I'm talking about this first one and then second one and third one. That's also a very important principle because when you have a lot of things going on your screen, sometimes students don't know where to focus. And so it's important to kind of help them to focus on the things that you are talking about. And that way it makes it super clear for them. And so here's just basic general tech tips. Use fewer tools, but use them well. If you have, I saw on the feedback form, that some of you have like, using Quizlets and Kahoot and, lots of other tools and things like that. And that's fine. And that's great. And if you're comfortable using those many tools, go for it. But I always try to, discourage faculty who are kind of maybe, new to online to not overwhelm themselves or their students. Because when you are using too many tools, it just can get overwhelming online. So try to minimize the number of tools. And then the few tools you use, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 at most, and just use them very, very well. Don't fear failure. Things will not work, but again, don't stress out. Just try to troubleshoot and figure it out. And the more comfortable you are with the technology, you're not going to stress out as much. Seek help from your colleagues, get together with somebody and figure out, where are things you can improve on, where are things you can practice. And then focus on long-term goals. Maybe you're just new to Zoom. This is a new tool, you never used it before. Maybe set a goal for 6 months from now. Like maybe you're only using the screen share now, but maybe 6 months from now, you may want to start using the polling app or the annotation app, or other tools within Zoom. Just set long-term goals, so that way you're not sort of stressing yourself out trying to learn everything all at once. And then lastly, just make it fun. So those are kind of my quick tips for general tech. So I want you to take a moment and for you to now respond to my first part. So if you can sort of identify one area, whether it's hardware, software, environment, or the creation of slides, which area do you feel like you need to work on for yourself to be a better online teacher? So put your answer in chat. So just hardware, software, environment, or slides. Which of those areas do you feel like you need to work on? So go ahead and I'll give you a few minutes and add your response in chat. All right. So green screen, yes. This is part of the green screen is one of the best investments I've made, or our family has made. We use this almost every day, whether it's for meetings or for teaching or for whatever. It's just a very, very useful. And you can get these, in the US, it costs about $40 US, maybe, cheaper in Vietnam, but definitely something I would encourage you. Yes, learning how to, I'm hoping I'm interpreting this correctly, the rules in classroom, the different Google Classroom tips or ways to use it. Okay, well, thank you. This is helpful because, again, I'm hoping, I'm just bringing up these issues as a way for you to identify the areas that you can improve on. That's really the hope of today's session, is that I'm giving you ideas, I'm giving you reminders, I'm giving you new things to think about, so that maybe something will stick and that it will help you to improve your online teaching. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. I'm going to now move on to my second area that I'm going to talk about. Oh, thank you, Hang, for clarifying. Rules should apply to keep the attention. That's exactly what I'm going to be moving to, this topic. So thank you for that comment. It's a good transition. So I'm going to now turn my attention to the engagement strategies. I read through all of your questions that you submitted, and the student engagement is by far the most asked question. How do I keep my students focused? How do I make sure they're paying attention? How do I know that they're not, doing something else? All that, are related to student engagement. And so I'm going to now ask you this. What do you think is going on in this picture? Give me a one-word describing what's going on in this picture. So put that in chat if you will. Just one word. When you look at this picture, this is a student looking at a computer. How would you describe this picture in one word, or maybe like a few words, nothing longer than that? Tired, boredom. Yep. Confused. They're suffering. Yes, they're bored and tired. Yes, these are really great adjectives to describe what's going on. Yeah, and we hope these are not students of ours on the other side. I hope this is not you right now in this session. Despair. Yeah, they're almost like, frustrated. They're like, oh, what do I do now? Kind of question. And yeah, so you can see, this is a very common situation in our classes, especially when we're teaching online. And so it's always good to be, again, accurate about the real situation that we're facing. And again, until you know what's true or what's happening, you're not going to be able to fix it or address it. So thank you for that. So here's my first point about engagement. Someone, I don't know who knows who said this. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember, and I do and I understand. I don't know if you know who that is. So I believe, I mean, this is, Confucius is the person that I think was attributed to. But if you look at this learning pyramid, or this, what they call learning retention. So let me kind of hover over this. So if you, this has been very much, scientifically studied many decades, and, there's different versions of this, but let me just kind of go through this with you. So if you think about how teaching and learning typically happens in a university setting, in a classroom, let's say a physical classroom, a lot of it is lecturing. But the problem with lecturing is only 5% is retained after, I think, so they say after 1 hour after a lecture, the retention is 50%. And then after like 4 hours, it's down to like 20%. I forget all the cycle, how the frequency of how things decline. But usually, like, let's say 2 weeks after a lecture, people remember about 5% of what, you will only remember 5% of what I say today, which is scary. But if you go on and read, you assign readings, it will increase their retention. And then you also, if you add audio, video, which is what we're doing, it will also increase. And then demonstration also improves. And so, but the problem is all these things, the first 4 things happening is what they call a passive teaching method. Very passive. And so those are not really good for retention. And so what you really want to do is to focus on these things on the bottom, what they call participatory or active teaching methods, group discussions, practice by doing, and teaching others. So the idea is, group discussion, all these activities, they're forcing the students to actually do something with the content. They're not just sitting there passively listening, passively watching other people. They're doing something. What I've tried to do with the polling is, a chat and all that is to get you to do something. Again, going back to saying, if you just hear it, you'll forget. But if you see it, you might remember. And if you do something, you will understand. And so the idea is you want to get your students doing things as much as possible, whether it's discussion, practice doing something, or teaching others. And so it's a way to make sure that they're grasping the ideas by doing things. So what I'm going to do is now give you a practice opportunity to do that. So I'm going to do a breakout room. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. So I'm going to give you instructions first, and then I'm going to give you, I'm going to break you into breakout rooms. You're going to spend about 3 minutes in your breakout room, and then you're going to answer this question. What is your formula for engaged online learning? And when I say formula, this is what I mean. Engagement equals, if you were to write this as a math formula, what would engagement equal to in your sort of your understanding of this? So I'm gonna go ahead and let me start breakout rooms. I'm gonna probably put no more than, let me see, there are, how many people are here? There are 21. So I'm gonna create 7 I'm gonna create 7 rooms. So there should be about 3 people per room. 3 to 5 is really the ideal, because if you have more than 5, some people will get lost in the room. So actually I'm gonna create 6. So it'll be around 3 to 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and create these rooms. So my question for you is, during your 3 minutes, you're gonna answer, you're going to, as a group, come up with a formula for what engagement equal to. Okay. What is your formula for student engagement? So go ahead, and I'm going to open up these rooms and go and join these rooms. Okay, I think everybody is now back in this room. Maybe a few more people straggling stragglers. Okay, so I want one representative from each room, each group, to quickly share their solution. So in group one, can someone from room one, so this is, let me see here. Well, actually, maybe I won't go around. So why don't we just have anybody who want to share what they've discovered in their breakout room to unmute and then share your what you discovered in your room. Maybe yeah. It'd be great to have like at least 2 or 3 volunteers. That would be helpful. All right, Vu, I think you're.
Yeah, our group decided to come up with a solution. It's we assign them tasks, so engagement equals tasks and plus discussion.
Task plus discussions. Okay, that's good. Can you put that in the chat so that we can also have that recorded so other people to see? So thank you. That's helpful. Thanks, Vu. Okay, Lynn, go ahead. I see your hand. You raised your hand.
Hi. So I'm in group 4 with Mr. Tu and Mr. Ming. So we came up with an equation that is the engagement equals to ability multiplied by motivation.
Say that again. So engagement equals
ability multiplied by motivation.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put that in the chat box.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I like that. And the multiplying, it's like the exponential factor, because if they have abilities and they can, sort of multiply that by their high motivation, then that really makes it a highly engaged learning environment. Other groups that, what did you guys come up with? Well, inquiry plus response, that's good. You want all the questions you're asking that there's a reaction to it, a response to it, because that's important. Yes. All right. Well, thank you for your participation. And I think this is, again, another tool. I'm going to just sort of give a quick meta communication here. A breakout room is a powerful tool when you're teaching online, because it's almost simulating the small group task that you do in a physical classroom. You can give them a task, break them out, they can do it, and then they come back and report. And so if you are very clear about your assignment for them, they hopefully will come back, and then they can then report. And you can even give grades if you wanted to for these tasks, so that it kind of increases their motivation to do well in these things. So this is how I would define it. Again, all your responses are just as good as mine, so I'm not saying mine is better than yours. The way I would define engagement is the number of active participants divided by the total participants. And the way I define active participants is that if they posted something in chat, they responded to a poll, they spoke up, interacted with other people, used a reaction, joined the breakout room. If they did something active, that's the number of active participation. And in this session, so we have 21 of you, and including me, 22. So if I have 21 people who did one active thing, and if it's 21 over 21, the whole number 1 becomes 100% participation or engagement. And that's what, for me, engagement means, is just the idea is the number of people who are active over the total participants that's in the session. So you might get, for example, let's say you're teaching in a class with 50 students. You might only get 10 people who are very active, and then 40 of them are not active. And so your 10 over 50 is only, that means only 20, it's a 0.2. And Not just, again, I'm not trying to get scientific here, but the idea is if you can get 2/3 of your audience, of your students to be engaged, if you have 0.66, greater than 2/3 of your students engaged in a session, then that's a really good goal. I mean, I'm not even talking about 100%, no, 2/3. And I think for sure in this session, I've gotten more than 2/3 of you engaged. Just the fact that I did the different exercises up to this point has gotten everyone at least some engagement. And so just, an idea for you guys to, think about when you talk about engagement. There's there are 4 very simple engagement techniques via Zoom that I want to point out. I mean, these are things I've used already. You can vote. You ask the students to vote. You can ask them to write in chat. You can have them to speak via audio, or you can ask them to collaborate via breakout room. I've done all 4 of those things already. I've asked you to do all 4. So very, very simple. Vote, write, speak, and collaborate. No, very simple. Everyone could participate. Here are 20 engagement strategies, activities you can do. Again, I'm going to make my slides and my video available to you. I'll share this with your dean, and then he can forward it to all of you, or maybe I'll just email it to all of you because I have your email, and then you can always go back. But I've done a number of these already today. Personalization is the first activity we did, where you give yourself a grade as a teacher, to polling, to picture prompt, which is in a picture of that frustrated student. Inventory taking is about where you are and how you're feeling about things, and then solving a problem. And I'm going to do a couple more before we end today. So, all right, let me now shift gear to my last one. But actually, before I do that, I would like to maybe this is I'm going to stop sharing. And this is an opportunity so if you have your camera, if you want to turn it on, great. If you don't, no worries. This is just a way for me to, give you an opportunity. So let's, have a conversation. So we talked about 2 things, 2 big areas so far: tech tips and student engagement strategies. Let's see, are there specific questions about those 2 areas first? And then, let's take a few minutes to stop before we add more material. So this is, as a teacher, it's important when you're communicating a lot of ideas to always take moments to stop and to let your students ask questions or reflect. So, that if you have if you have your video, or if you want to raise your hand or whatever, just make that visible so that you can, or you can just unmute yourself and you can start sharing or asking. And you can also put your question in the chat window as well. So let's I'm going to just give a few minutes. I'm not going to add any more information at this point, and then give people a chance to process, reflect, and then before I go on. And it will be awkward when no one says anything, but it's okay. Teaching is when there's silence, the brain has time and space to process. So you don't ever want to rush through a silent moment.
Mike, so I was thinking about combining the learning management systems like Google Classroom or Moodle with the...
Oops, you're breaking up.
And in my experience, I found it if the student are given information prior to the class, they are more likely to participate.
Yep.
Because they kind of know something before that,
Yep.
and when they know something, they're more likely to join the discussion. So we always try to post the video providing with background, reading materials for the students, so that the student can, learn a little bit beforehand before coming to the classroom online.
Yes. Definitely. So I actually will talk a little bit about this in my next part. But yeah, you're absolutely right. When you're able to provide some sort of materials for your students prior to class, the pre-learning material, like whether it's sharing a reading or asking them to watch a video or a recorded lecture or something, it's priming the pump, so that by the time they get to your synchronous session, they will have already had time in the material and be able to then bring more to the class than if they didn't come with any, like sort of similar to today, like, many of you probably didn't have any pre-reading. And so you came to this with sort of maybe you're sort of still, you're learning so much and you don't have the time to process. So yes, the pre-learning is important, and pre-class activity. And I will also talk about post-class activity too. Those are important things. So thank you for that.
I have one question. So how are we gonna turn those? A lot of students will say thank you for posting the materials. So I would see that as very minimum kind of response. But at least they say they took time and they say thank you, or they say that's useful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think how to take the benefit of those, respond. How are we going to turn those very basic minimum respond into something that is more engaging?
Yes.
From the students.
Yes.
Do you have any idea, any tips or any advice?
Yeah. So one quick easy thing to do is you put a quiz alongside the material you share, and you give points for the quiz. So for example, let's say you upload your slides, I'm just gonna today as an example. So I'm recording the session right now. I'm gonna share the slides, and one thing I can do is add a quiz to it, and say that after you watch the video and review the slides, take this 10 question quiz. And if you score 100%, you get an extra whatever, points or percentage for your class grade. And you do that as a way to, again, motivate or incentivize your students to continue doing that. And so just adding an assessment to whatever you're doing and rewarding them is a easy way to get more engagement from your students. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Are there other questions? I know this is, I want to make sure people have time to process the first two big ideas before we move on to the third. So that's why we're kind of taking a moment here to stop before I dive into more. You can put your question. Oh, sorry.
I don't know if teachers, I think a lot of the questions that you raised center around, how to, increase student engagement. So if you can, share with us, especially Dr. Chung, about what you have tried and how successful it was.
Yes.
Maybe some of you would do, like giving grades to the students,
Mm-hmm.
or like incentivize them, or maybe some other lean toward more punishment if you don't do something. So if you can share with us what you have tried and how successful they were.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to hear stories of how you've been teaching as a teacher and what's worked, what's not.
Hi.
Hi, Lynn.
I think many other teachers do this like me. Like so I ask my students to participate by giving their shares and thoughts, and then that would take into participation points.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, all the students try to engage by either talking or chatting.
Mm-hmm.
But still some students, they just want to take that participation point, so they just do that once.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, still, I think many teachers hesitate to share because they haven't found really good solution yet.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's for me.
Yeah. So Lynn, can you turn your camera on, or are you able to turn your camera on, or comfortable turning your camera on?
I don't think I can, because of many technical.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be good to kind of see the people that are sharing. So if you can, when you're talking, just turn on your camera so that people can see who you are, at least for me. But so Lynn, yeah, I think what I'm seeing right here is there were a lot of questions in the survey about. I think I'm reading this. How do I know students are doing what they're supposed to be doing? Or like maybe they're watching TV right now. Maybe you're watching TV or talking to other people. You're doing something else besides, focusing on this webinar. And that's, I think, very common to have those concerns. But I think part of it is we have to adjust a little bit. Like, I think there's no, with online learning, there's a lot of benefits. It's convenient. People are able to do it at home, and that session's being recorded, so they can watch it later. So they don't have to be 100% present, and that's okay. But you also, when you're in, this is what I'll talk about in the next part, is when you do have synchronous time, you want to set expectations and say that this is our time together. We want this to be as engaging, interactive, sort of the asking questions, answering questions, having conversation. And so you just make it clear. But yes, I'm struggling with the same issues that you're struggling in your classes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard, but I still enjoy it. I just I think I found out the thing that you just said. I shouldn't be afraid of the silence that the students give me. Maybe they're just processing what I was talking about.
Exactly. And sometimes it's important. Like, I think the problem we overly do is we don't like any silence in our online class, because it feels like, oh, something's not happening. No, silence is actually very important in an online class, because people need time and silence to think. And sometimes what I would do in a session is I actually would say, no, for the next 5 minutes, we're going to be all muted, and we're going to give them a prompt they think about, or they do some ideas and they write. And so for 5 minutes online, they're just kind of processing, and that's important. So
yeah. Can I share a story?
Yes, please.
Real quick. So last year when we started doing this thing, the online classes, I that was the first time for me, and I didn't have any information about teaching online. It was like all of a sudden. And so when I found out that my students they're not listening to me, they didn't pay attention, there was a lot of silence actually. And I would say I freaked out. And yes, and but then it turned into stress. I was stressed a lot, and then the students could find that I'm always uptight and I'm not as friendly as usual. And actually one day the students actually talked to me, and they say, why we are talking to each other, and we are wondering, why are you getting so you get annoyed so easily, you're not as friendly on online class anymore. I was happy that they talked to me about it. But then I shared with them. I said, it's really hard for me to first of all, I talk to you and I don't see you. I don't know if you are listening. I don't know what you're doing. It was really hard for me. And then nobody even answered to me. I share a lot of frustration, and, we talked, and then after that, I think they shared the story, for sure. And then after that, the students were a lot more engaged. But then this year, I think we went back to ground zero. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the students need some kind of role play to see how hard it is to be in the role of teacher.
Yeah. And that's a great, I will, if I have time at the end, I may give you an opportunity to kind of practice a little bit. So yes, I think assigning them a teaching opportunity is important, or at least a sharing opportunity, like a presentation or something. It kind of puts them in the driver's seat, and then it kind of forces them to kind of like, okay, so this is what it feels like to be the teacher. And then, maybe they can then be more sympathetic in the future. But thank you, Lynn, for sharing that story. Very
thank you.
One quick questions, Mike. I don't know if you have time today, and I think it's important also for us to understand how the student perceive. You send a picture the other moment, asking us to describe what the student, how the student feel. So if you can, talk about, if there is any study in science about how the learner learning, because sometimes because we are in the driver's seat, we are more like more proactive in our activities, we prepare and so on, then we feel like we have a lot of things to say, and we feel like other people are not at that kind of preparedness level. So that also put a certain stress on the students. So I like your idea of giving them a 5-minute pause so that they can process information. I never did that. So if you can talk more about that, if you have time. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think, my next section will talk a little bit about the student experience in online and sort of some of the things that are going on. So, all right, I'm going to give another minute just in case somebody wants to share a story, or if you raise your hand or unmute or put it in the chat. I'll give you one more minute before I move on. Remember, silence is good. This is good for me as a presenter, because then, I can catch my breath. And then I could reset. There. All right. So we will have another opportunity at the end. So I feel it's okay for me to keep moving forward. So I'm going to go back to my presentation and now talk about the third part of this webinar. So, okay. So we had talked about tech tips. We have talked about student engagement strategies. And now we're going to talk about some of the specifics of online teaching best practices. And this is related to the slides that you probably did see. Your Dean to share that with you. It's part of the Fulbright site with all the resources. And this is based on one of those. And I actually just focus on on 5 of those as opposed to all 10, because I think that was a little bit too much. So I'm going to just focus on 5 best practices. And these are all research based. They've been studied and written in books and articles. All right, so let's start with the first one. Being present in your course site. So I think most of you are using Google Classroom. If you're not, I encourage you to do it, because you need to have a place where students go to find materials, whether it's your lecture slides, homework, readings, whatever. But I encourage you to really be be using that in a regular way. And more than that, you need to be present in that course. And when I say present, these are the things I mean. So this is, I would say, the most fundamental and most important thing you can do in online teaching. If you're in the course and you're answering students' questions, you're posting things regularly, the students see that, there's actually a person behind this course, a teacher behind this course. That's a positive thing for those students. The worst thing to happen is you have this Google site, Google Classroom, and you don't do anything with it. Or you post one thing at the beginning, you post a syllabus, and then you don't do anything for 2 weeks. And then you may be posting another announcement and you don't do another thing for 2 weeks. You don't want that. I mean, when you are absent from your course, when students don't see you present posting and adding things or responding to things or commenting on things, then you are not going to be able to kind of tell your students, communicate to your students that you are there. So this is what I think students, so your students want to know you as a person. They want to know you as an expert, and they want to know what you think based on your expertise and your experience. And so your course site is where you can do that. Now you can communicate who you are as a person in terms of how you think about an issue, but also who you are as an expert. Say if you are an English teacher, that's your expertise. They want to kind of know that. They want to see that. They want to be able to, say, you know what, this teacher is competent, and they know, he or she knows what they're doing. And so this is a critical thing, being present in your course site. And since online is hard to see somebody, they want to see you through your words and your video and whatever things you're posting. Those are kind of, you're kind of in some ways trying to embody yourself in the course as best as you can. And so that's a very, very important thing, is so be present in your course. Here's just a quick, so I have a colleague who put this together. This is about what they call humanizing online learning. So she has this book that actually she's writing on what that means to humanize online learning. And she says 3 things. Now, presence is number 1. Don't be a robot. That's a role. Create lively welcome videos, provide feedback, give students all those things. But at the same time, have empathy. This is what you were asking earlier about your student situation. I think Lynn also asked about, talked about that. You want to sense what your students, where they're at and where they're needing support. Be approachable, open up to their needs, check in individually. If you see, let's say you have one of your students who's like maybe your best students, all of a sudden they're not in your Google Classroom, they're not responding, they're not doing anything, check in with them. Say, hey, maybe they don't have internet connection. Maybe they have something that happened that they can't, join or whatever. Just being empathetic is very important as a teacher. And then awareness, know your students. Now, again, this is all about being human, and in an online context, things are very impersonal, and it can get a little bit feeling like isolated or alone for a lot of students. And so, survey them, give them sort of icebreakers, build, things that will allow them to quickly give you feedback. So those are, quick 3 things you can do to humanize your online learning experience, especially for your students. So that's number 1. Number 2, you want to create a supportive online community. And the way you do that is, so you want to nurture your community in a way that gives them opportunities to interact in the same way that they would in a classroom. So there are kind of 3 relationships that happen typically in a classroom if they really break it down. There's a relationship between you and the student. No, that's one relationship. There's also a relationship between the students to other students. So students peer to peer, as they call it. And then the third relationship that happens is the student to the content. So these three dialogues commonly take place in a classroom. And so you want to make sure that if you can in your online class, you're doing that. You give those ways to do that for, in your online class. And then when you're building online community, I think you're trying to sort of increase the frequency of these different interactions between you and your students, between students to student, and also student to content. So, so let me show you a little graphic here. So as a teacher to your student, that relationship you have is what they call, social presence. Same, whether it's online or face-to-face, how you relate to your students actually matters. They've actually found studies that if a teacher shows care and compassion for their students tend to do better. They try harder. They will be more persistent. They will persevere more. But if a teacher does not show any interest or doesn't show care to their students, then the relationship will go bad really quickly. The students will tune out. They won't attend class. They would think, oh, it's not important. They don't, they just will totally not go. They won't respond anymore. So that's very critical. Students to the student to content relationship, that's where they show relevance. So besides them communicating with you, students also need to engage with the content. Make sure that the content you're giving them is applicable or relevant. Bring it down to their day-to-day life. How is this going to help them? Like, for example, today, I tried to think about the session from a perspective of the teacher in your situation. What are the things that I can talk about that will help you as a teacher tomorrow or today when you're holding your next class, to make it more engaging? And that's something that's important. And so and then you, as your relationship with content is, that's where you get to show off your expertise. How you talk about the content matters, because then it makes it exciting or motivating for your students. And so those are kind of the three dialogues or relationships that go on in a course, and you want to do that as much as you can. Number 3, use synchronous and asynchronous activities. So synchronous is what we're doing right now. It's real time. We have to be there together. Asynchronous time is self-paced. You put a reading in your Google Classroom, you ask them to read it, and people can read it between now and Wednesday. Anytime they want. It's self-paced kind of idea. And so you want to have a balance. You don't want to have just asynchronous time, which means you have no real time, and you don't want to have only real time, and that's not good either. You want to balance as much as you can. So there's actually a very popular method that people have been using for a number of years now, and it's I think more important now than ever. It's called flipped classrooms. You probably have heard of this term, where you are balancing the synchronous with the asynchronous. So here's a image illustration of what you do in class, which is the synchronous time, and what you do out of class. So again, I think your dean asked this question earlier about how do you kind of balance these two? The in-class really is for interactions. It's application. It's for them to practice what they're doing. Those are kind of things that you want, like what we're doing right now. It's Q&A. It's the expert is here. So you should ask your questions because you will get an answer. Because if you wait till after class, or you wait till when it's not synchronous, asynchronous time, well, you can ask a question still in email, but it's going to take a little bit more of a delay before you get a response. So that the value of synchronous is that you get an instant feedback, instant response. That becomes more delayed in asynchronous, but that's important. The asynchronous time allows people to process, to catch up, to reread things, and so flipped classroom is you can Google that, lots of resources of how to set that up. I can answer some of these questions later if you want. Number 4, prepare a discussion post that invites responses and questions, discussions, and reflections. So the idea is your online discussion is really at the heart of your online course, the heart and soul of your online course, because unlike a face-to-face synchronous time where only when you're together you can have a conversation, online is actually, this is where I think online exceeds the face-to-face. Conversations can be happening throughout the day, throughout the week, and you don't have to be in class to do it. You know, when you set up a prompt in Google Classroom, people can respond and they can talk about the topic, they can talk about a reading, and they can do that throughout the week, anytime they want, anytime they're free. That's so valuable, so powerful, and you want to take advantage of that. It's also the primary place where you as a teacher get to talk to your students and for them to talk to each other. So again, it's where the community happens. You know, what I was talking about, the 3 conversations, the 3 dialogues. This is the discussion forum, gives you the opportunity to develop those communities. And I highly encourage you to leverage that as best as you can. This is just a quick illustration. Hang, do you have a question? Hang, do you have a question? You just unmuted. I didn't know if you had a question or not. Oh, that was maybe an accidental unmute. So there are 3 things you can do in a discussion prompt. One is you can discuss to comprehend, you can discuss to critique, or you can discuss to create knowledge, to construct knowledge. And so you can always ask questions in these 3 different ways. You can ask them like understanding question, like, in this reading, what was the main point? That's a discuss to comprehend kind of prompt. Discussion to critique is like, do you think the author is correct in this article? Or do you think the author made sense or whatever? You're critiquing. And then a construction is based on this author's article, what new idea comes to mind? And that's a creating new knowledge. And so these are 3 basic ways you can have a conversation, and it's all very productive, as opposed to, do you agree or disagree? I mean, things like, sometimes it's a low order stuff you want to move away from. And then finally, my last best practices for online teaching is assess as you go by gathering evidence of learning. So the best practice, this best practice, it keeps you focused on where your learners are at, what they're learning, what they're doing, how they're thinking. People don't really know, like as a teacher, like if you don't assess, you're not going to know where your students are at. And so that's where, assessment is good. You don't have to do these big summative exams. You don't want to wait till like your midterm where it's 50% of your grade to figure out if students understand your material. Do a smaller quiz, let them practice and tell you like whether or not they understand it. And so this is a very a good practice for doing throughout the course. This is a graph that kind of shows you want to, whatever learning goals you have, you want to provide the learning opportunities, you want to assess it, and then you want to then use that result to adjust. Let's say you're teaching 3 concepts this week, and you give a little quiz, and then it looks like the students only understand the first 2, but then they don't get the 3rd concept. So what you're going to do is then give them more materials or give an extra lecture or whatever on the 3rd content, good 3rd topic, so that they can better understand it. So that's just a way to do that. So those are kind of the 5 tips for best practices, and these are sort of some of the books and then the online resources. And so this is where I'm going to now turn to Q&A, but let me kind of give you a quick. So this was the survey question that was sent out by your dean, and I did a word cloud, and these are the words that came. So students, the word student came up 38 times, which is good. It sounds like that's a good sign, because you are concerned about your students. You want your students to succeed, and that's why it's there. And then online also was the 2nd most frequent word, and then participation, interaction, and so on. So this is sort of where, and then these are kind of the top 5 questions that were asked. How do you keep students focused and engaged? how do you do group work, collaboration, how do you conduct group discussions, how do you use technology, and how do I manage organized activities online. So with that, I'm going to now to stop sharing so that we can have a conversation. I want everyone to put one comment or one question in the chat. Just one question or one comment in the chat based on what you've heard so far. So take a minute or two, think of a question or a comment about what you've heard or today. I'm gonna change. No, I'm responding to the situation, and I'm gonna change our interaction a little bit. So I am going to ask you to talk with. Let me go back to my prompt here. So here's the prompt. So this is sort of an exit ticket, and then this is actually a good way for us to finish off. So I'm going to break you guys up into maybe 2 to 3 people per room. And then I want you to share 1 or 2 takeaways. 1 or 2 takeaways that's most important for you. Maybe it's something you want to work on, or maybe something you want to do better, or just a new knowledge you gained. And then I'm going to then come back and I'm just going to call on people. So 1 or 2 takeaways. So I'm going to go ahead and try. Okay, let me set up the breakout rooms, and then I'm going to have recruit.
Okay. Đến giáo viên còn chả hỏi gì nữa là
Yes.
sinh viên, bọn nó không hỏi là chuyện đương nhiên. Hi, it's Mr. Mike.
Yes, I'm visiting.
Hi, Mike.
Yes, I'm visiting. So
the most important thing that we learn from this talk that is Miss Bing is already saying that it's silent is okay, because even even as we are as a teacher, we still I also withdraw. Yeah. Every 15 minutes, you need to make a small break of 1 or 2 minutes.
Yep.
Even you just ask a questions. If there's a chat, if there's a question, that's fine. If there's no, then that's the time for them to
take a break.
Yes, to rest, take a rest.
Yep.
And then concentrate a little bit better for the next 15 minutes. Yes.
Yes.
So that is the second thought.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I wanted to take breaks. I was gonna say, like, you can now go to the bathroom or get coffee or whatever, but then people may not come back.
Yes.
But yes.
Yes, that is true. Because in the Italian university, I have to teach for hours.
Oh wow.
And the last time I after 2 hours, I already too much tired.
Yep.
Then I realized that I had been talking for almost 2 hours.
Oh wow.
Continuously.
Yep.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yes.
So now I will apply your strategy. Every 15 minutes, I make a break of 1 or 2 minutes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for letting me drop in. I'm going to visit another class. Okay. Another group.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for the lecture today.
Okay. I'll come back. All right. Bye-bye.
Do mạng méo rồi. Lúc mất tiếng lúc này. Hello.
Hello. I'm just visiting.
Hi. So it's very useful. Actually, I have been watching and learned a lot from your teaching today.
So what was the most important takeaway for you?
Actually, everything, like from the for the first second, like you start with a questions to let us to evaluate ourselves, and then a pool and everything, a lot of activities. Actually, it's not just about anything that you have taught, but everything that you have done. within this session.
Okay.
So I like it very much.
Okay, I'm
Thank
glad.
you so much.
What about the others?
She doesn't have a microphone, so she has
Oh
to
no, she has
chat.
to chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll give people another few minutes. We're almost done with our 5 minutes, and then we can get to larger conversation. I'm gonna visit 1 or 2 other groups, and then we'll bring everybody back. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Okay. Hello. I'm just visiting.
Hello.
So, what are you guys' big takeaways?
Okay, so in my case, I think the takeaway that I can take is that silence is not really scary.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for me, last year actually there was sometimes that there's silence during class. I was not really stressed out, but I feel really sad. Then I asked the student. I take some time to talk to the student, not about the lesson, but I talk to the student that do they understand. And I spend some time talking to them. Yeah. And I think it's better. They respond more. When I talk about everything, not the lesson, they respond more to me. Yeah. And then I start to teach again. Then that is one of my takeaway. And then another is that I see some of the activities you do in Zoom. I'm not quite familiar with Zoom, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, do you use Google Hangout or Meet for your class? Okay. Yeah.
Last year I used Meet.
Yes. So Zoom and Meet have almost very similar functionality. They have breakout rooms, they have polling, they have shares. So whatever I did today, you can do also in your Google Meet. They're just a little bit different, but very similar in that. So, okay. All right, I'm going to visit one more group and then I'll bring everybody back, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Oops. Hello.
Bố dùng tài khoản Zoom của con.
I'm visiting. I'm trying to see how you guys are doing. So what are the big takeaways you guys are talking about?
So for me, I think the thing that I got is creating a pool at the start of the lecture. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's very interesting. But I thought that before, but I haven't applied it in practice. But now I will try to do it.
Okay, that's good. I hope you will get to practice some of these techniques.
Yes.
Okay, and what about others?
Well, sorry, I joined the meeting late, so I missed most of the part of your lecture, but I really interested in your the strategies that you propose that we can use to engage students, to keep the student engaged.
Okay.
So I think I will apply some of your suggestions for my class. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to close up all the breakout rooms and then we're going to go back to the large group and then we're going to share. Okay.
Thanks.
Everybody is now back in the big room. So we have about 10 minutes and we don't have to use up all 10 minutes. And I think, some of you have to get going and do other things and start your day. So I understand that. So, I appreciate being able to drop in the rooms and talk with people. And, I heard some share about, silence is okay. I hope that, you will remember that next time you have silence in the room. And also heard from another group that talked about the different engagement techniques. They want to try some of those. I hope you will. And then I also heard someone shared about the technology, something that, it's difficult, but it's just a matter of practice. The more practice you have, the better you'll get, and it just takes some time. Don't worry, don't stress out, just have some fun. So I have some parting words. Let me now just share my last screen here. So so my parting words are these for you. And I've probably done this before when I was in HANU 2 years ago, and I do this often, but these are very powerful parting words. Psychologists say these are the next 3 sentences are the 3 most important sentences you can say to anybody. So the first thing I want to say to you is that you can do it. So if you can, just say it out loud, or you unmute it or whatever. You can do it, because I believe in you. That's the second one. You as a faculty, I mean, you're taking time to learn. This is important information that hopefully will improve your teaching. So I believe that you can do this. And then lastly, you are not alone. That you have colleagues, you have your dean, you have others who can help. Just reach out, talk to somebody, and be able to, don't do this alone. You don't have to do it alone. You always have people to help and support you. So you can do it. I believe in you, and you are not alone. And here are my contacts. If you want to keep in touch with me via Facebook, LinkedIn, or my email. So with that, I will stop the share, and we still have 8 minutes I can give back to you if you want. But I will stick around for those who want to talk and chat if you want. I will formally end the recording. Let me stop the recording now.